Hi guys, it's Alec here, and want to show you guys how to pivot like a pro, and specifically using pivot charts. Okay, so how to take data and turn it into logical pictures. Okay, so I've often spoken about some of Pastel's cool little background things that you find out as soon as you start playing or working with Pastel's data, and that is actually in any data set that you'll find these nice little gems out there that actually is just something special that you can only show through data. So I'm going to show you how that works, and specifically today I'm going to show you how often Pastel is out of balance. So we often say no, but Pastel is in balance on its trial balance, which is correct. It is in balance the way that it draws out its reports. So you can only draw out reports in Pastel. I'll actually show you that. Let's see if I've got my Pastel open, and I actually have it open here, so I'll jump into one of the, let's just reject that, and we go into a view here. So if you go into draw a trial balance, you'll actually see that it only allows you to draw a trial balance based on the period. Okay, so you can't draw it based on actual dates. You'll see it says 1 to 13 and gives you period numbers only. So it gives you the whole period. So the 6th period, which is August here, it says the 1st of August until the 31st of August. You can't pull it on a day-to-day basis. Okay, some databases actually allow you that, especially the bigger corporate kind of environments. They actually allow you to draw a database. Now the reason is the way that Pastel processes. So this is quite interesting. I'm going to jump into one of our demo data sets here. This is actually a consolidated MyBI environment. We've taken two Pastel Express databases and we've actually combined it into one. And I want to show you with a picture how actually those things pop out. Okay, so it's going to be a little bit like Pastel is alive. Okay, and remember, data comes alive as soon as you throw it into pictures and as soon as you're able to work with it in a very simplistic way. There's about 20,000 lines of transactions in the GL in these two databases, and I'm going to drill on the full thing, and it's going to be like something is coming alive, and we're going to see like a heartbeat coming through, and we're going to try now visualize this. Okay, so if I go to the balance sheet, you actually see everything is in balance. Okay, so everything seems to be in balance. If I go to the dashboard here, it says there's 23,000 rows of transactions, and the balance sheet is in balance, which is correct. At the end of a period, it's in balance. But let's go and delve a little bit deeper. Okay, so I'm going to drill down into the 0 here, which anything in MyBI says I can prove myself by double-clicking, by drilling down into the detail. So I say prove yourself. That's why it's great for auditing purposes, because you actually can say, I want to see, I don't believe you, show me now how you make up that number. So here we said, well, we drilled into the amount 0, and the year date stamps it for us on the 30th of July. At 29 minutes past 10, and it says to us, here you go, if you go and add up these 23,064 rows of transactions, you're actually balancing to 0. That doesn't look like a 0, but it's actually to the power of 10 to the power of minus 9, which is a very, 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 very small decimal, but it is a 0. Okay, now I want to take it out and we're going to visualize it. So I go back to my drill down sheet. There it says, you've drilled down here, and I want to export this because I want to pivot. You can't use and manipulate data within MyBI. That's the great thing about it being an audit tool. It says what you see is what the database actually is. It's not manipulated by anybody. Right, now I want to pivot this. So I want to pivot chart this, however. I don't want to just draw a normal pivot. So remember, when you pivot, know your field names and know what you want to achieve. Okay, so what I want to achieve here is, firstly, I want to visualize something. So I'm going to put in a nice pivot table here. When it's in a data table like this, which is the drill downs are, that automatically land in a data table, it actually auto selects the whole table for you, which is a great and powerful way to work with data. So it means you don't have to go and select a certain field and go and draw it wider and make sure that there's no rows or spaces missing or anything. It just selects it because it's a data table. Okay, so here I've got all my fields. Remember, know your fields. So firstly, I want to show something about amount. I believe that amount is out very often in Pastel. Okay, now we go here, and if you click here, you just click on that little arrow. We're going to make this into a nice number format. Let's just do a number and use 1,000 separator. Okay, and okay. Now it's that little 0. Remember, it builds this chart for us here, and it builds something here, which is actually the pivot chart. So it builds both when you do pivot charts, which is very cool. Okay, so I want to design something. I like this black design. Usually it's quite a nice design, something like that, works, or maybe that even. But I'm going to go for this black. It just is, it's visually just works for me better. And I'm going to take away the grid lines because I don't want to be bothered by that. I just want to show you guys how cool this is going to look. Right, now I want to say, well, okay, I want to show that it's out on a day-to-day basis. So firstly, you know what? I actually want to build some kind of a line graph here. So let's go and we change this to a line graph. There we go. And we say come on, there we go. Change chart type. I want a line graph. Right, there we go. Okay, that looks like absolutely nothing. Why? Because it's on 0 and it's a line and it's 1 point, so it will say nothing. All right. Not surprised. Okay, now I'm going to go for financial year. So first want to pull in financial year. Now I've got many financial years in here. It's also in balance. Okay, that's interesting. Financial month. There's many financial months. It's still in balance. Very interesting. Okay, why? Well, we just saw in Pastel actually on a month-to-month basis, it is in balance. And even if we go back to the app, just to prove to ourselves that that is the truth, here we've got everything year to year balancing, and month to month it's balancing. Look at that. It's balancing 0, 0, 0, 0 every month, every month, every month. So not surprised that the data is actually reflecting this. It should be reflecting that. That means it is reliable, and that's the great thing about Pivotal. It takes the data and it just works with it in a very simplistic and cool and quick way. But this is a nice little field. We've got something called day. This takes the day of the date and it separates it for us. So if we go and throw this day over year, check what now starts to happen. All right, so firstly it says, well, there's too many data points. All right, so that happens. So let's try and maybe throw it a little bit into different places. All right, so what's happening over here? Now we want to actually see what it is telling us. Okay, so let's just close this for a moment. Okay, can't just throw it into all the columns like I wanted to initially. But what is it telling me? Well, it's telling me that this is the days on this chart here, 1 to 31. And look how often it actually goes away from the 0 line. Actually, very often. Okay, so let's see what it actually tells us in the background. So let's first do another little trick, or just another addition to the pivot. Okay, I want to add something to it. I want to change some things around. So I want to take financial year there and financial month over there. Right, there we go. That's actually what we wanted to see. Okay, as I said, it's going to be this cool come alive data set that looks like a heartbeat. Okay, and isn't that the truth now? Look at this. So what we see here, if we're just going to zoom in quite far, we're going to see that it pops off that 0 line very often. Why does it do this? Well, it means that it's not balancing on those days. It means that it's actually out of balance on those days. And at the end of the month, it'll actually balance again. So if we wanted to, visualize it slightly different again, so let's just kind of like throw that away and see what happens if we, for instance, take a year and we throw it there. Okay, now it's going to give us 2 nice line graphs. Oh, sorry, more than 2. It's going to give us 3 or 4 nice line graphs. Why? Because each year is now its own line graph. Okay, so it just means it's a shorter line graph. I'm going to zoom out now quite far so we can see the whole pivot chart. Right, and there we go. Now look how cool this is starting to look. Alrighty, so we're saying these are all the, but look how often it actually pops out. By the way, you can move this thing wherever you want. I'm going to move this thing slightly to the right so it just is not in our way here. But look how often it's out of balance. Look at that little, outlier there, way out of balance. But you can see here it's also way under again. So those together will make everything 0. And it's quite cool if we just move this to the side, we'll actually see what's going on here. Okay, so let's look at the actual data itself. It's saying to me, well, here's month 1 of 2017, 18, 19, 20. But if you look at this in a different way, it actually makes a lot of sense. If I'm going to put the field list and I put month over year, what we're now going to see is a very interesting data chart. Okay, so I'm going to, just for a moment, I'm going to zoom out quite a bit. Okay, and I'm going to move this one down. Oh, that didn't move yet. There we go. Okay, so let's have a look at the actual data set. This is very interesting from a Pastel perspective. Okay, so I'm going to zoom in a little bit more. Right, here we go. And I'm going to close this pivot field list here on the left, on the right. Right, so right. Okay, so what we have on the left here, now you need to left and right and everything, you have to really keep track, sorry guys, is that at the top, I'm going to freeze frame. There's a shortcut called Alt-WFF. Okay, that's a freeze frame shortcut. So if I go and scroll down, you'll see that still it's balancing. So what does each of these columns depict? Each of these columns depict a month, a financial month of a financial year. So that's the 12th month of the financial year, 2017, 2018, 1 to 12, and then 2019. And each of these are balancing. But look at each of the dates. The first day of the 12th period in 2017 is in balance, but the second day is not. So also not the fourth day, and so forth and so forth. And look how often, if you look at this is actually, these are almost about 200 data points within each of the years, maybe less, maybe 150 or so. Let's just add them up. 180 data points in the year, but look how often it's actually not in balance. There's in balance and there's a few in balance. We can even go and say, you know what, just do me a favor and you know, just kind of like take everything. Let's see if we can highlight all the columns quickly, and we rather say, you know what, just give me trying to highlight this whole thing there. So let's go to a conditional format and say highlight the rules only when it's equal to, but give me a green rather, only when it's equal to, or maybe even better than that, just highlight for me when it is not equal to. I think you can actually do it over here. There is a way. I'm going to show you guys. Just want to there we go. Okay, you know what, there is actually a way, but I'm just going to quickly give me a 0. There we go. Okay, so look at the zeros. Those are the points where it's either 0 or blank. But look how often, just on that visualization, the whites are showing us that it actually is out of balance on the white days. Now, maybe for I that's a little bit difficult, so let's do it slightly other way. Why don't we just highlight everything here? Okay, let's highlight everything, and we say, well, we want you to be let's make it a green color, okay, or let's make it rather a red color, like we're trying to show now. So let's make it like a red. Okay, that's very red, but all right, we see that. Now we go back to conditional format, and you highlight for me when you're equal to 0. Okay, you give me a custom format, and I actually want you to fill yourself with no color then, or a green color, right? Light green. Right, now it's going to be Technicolors. Look at that, how often this is out of balance. That red shows us actually it is out of balance on all of those days. Now remember, I mean, if I zoom out here, look how often it's out. Look at these months, out every single day, not one day it's in except at the end of the month. And the reason for that is actually very simple. Okay, I'm going to show you guys this as well, because I think it may just be bothering all the auditors out there, because it was mind-boggled to me at a stage. Okay, I'm going to show you one specific transaction here. Let's, for instance, take a transaction that is from Cashbook. That always is a nice one. So let's just go and see what we can find here on our Cashbook transactions. Here's a transaction, and we say, you know what, let's take this first one. This first one seems to be okay. Sorry, transaction ID. I'm not trying to. Let's just go for transaction ID and just do a haphazard one. 710. Oh, that one didn't help. We actually need a bigger one than that. I need a Cashbook payments one. Right, this one actually is good. Okay, so let's just take 710 off here. 1033. Here we go. Okay, cool. So this tells us that actually we are able to look at the data itself. Okay, so let's look at the data set itself. So it's a receipt, but it is receipts over multiple days. Look at this. It's days. It's 3 days that was actually processed over. This is one transaction. I went to the Cashbook and we processed the receipt against the Cashbook, but it was receipt at over 3 days. Okay, but look at this. Interesting is, although it is it's a multiple entries of receipts, it is only one single control total that went to my bank that said debit bank 8400 with the amount of 75,000, and credit all these other accounts when the days that on the days that actually were paid and received on bank, but one single entry of debit. So obviously it's out, because think of it, it's only in back on the 5th. It's out of balance on the 3rd. It's out of balance on the 2nd. Let's from the bottom up actually. It's out of balance then on the 2nd, which is those 2 transactions. Then on the 3rd on those 2 transactions. Then on the 5th, that one comes in, and only by that time is the debit of 75 posted. So on a nice T account balance, that's the day when you actually have balance back. Okay, so that's the way the Pastel processes. It processes on a bulk concept. You can actually set it separately that it does 1 individually on each leg, but it does increase the volume of your transactions. And I think if you have a data tool like this, it's not necessary, but you can do that anyway. So that's the normal way that Pastel processes, and that's actually the kind of like the normal default way it's been set up. Okay guys, I hope you enjoyed that little visualization. That's a nice little pivot chart where we've got using colors, and this is a pivot table, pivot table at the top using colors to show us, where we visualize data. And this is a pivot chart where we can actually see stuff being out of balance and just see data in a cool way. This is like 23,000 rows of transactions. Quite powerful stuff, just showing us so much and teaching us so much about the raw principles of accounting within Pastel. And I just love the T account principle of that. Isn't it cool? Okay guys, I hope you enjoyed that. I did, I know. And thanks for tuning in. Have a great one. Cheers guys.